You were listening to Thank Me for My Cervix, a podcast where we talk about all things mental health with a focus. Luna has the zoomies. Actually, we call them the flumies because she's fat. What was I saying? Oh, the podcast. You were listening to Thank Me for My Cervix, a podcast where we talk about all things mental health with a focus in the veteran and the military community. I'm your host, Marine Corps veteran Shyann Marie. And if you're watching this and I'm wearing my Snuggie, I went golfing this morning. Well, by me going golfing, I mean my boyfriend went golfing and I watched. But he, can you see the thumbs up? He needs a little bit more practice, but it was very cold, very cold. So that's why I'm still in my floozy. I think you got a 15 on the second. She just shut the door on me. Anyway, okay. So you can watch all of my interviews live on Instagram, or you can watch the replays on YouTube, or you can listen to the audio on Spotify. And of course, don't forget, we have shirts through Left Foot, Right Foot Company. 100% proceeds are always donated to veterans in need. Today's guest, I'm so excited. We have so much to talk about, so I'm going to go ahead and get her on. Shyann. Didn't want to mess it up. Wanted to get out of the way now. We're saying it right. Okay. And she already requested, look at her. She's all worried about not doing it. She's like,
Hello.
hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come chat with me today on this Sunday.
It's not a problem. I'm glad to be here.
So we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to just get to know you. It's just going to be us chatting. So tell me a little bit about where you grew up and why you chose the Marine Corps.
So I grew up in Auburn, Pennsylvania. The town was so small, it's probably not even on the map. I was working 2 jobs at the time. I was a teacher's assistant at a vocational school, and I worked as a cashier at a department store. And I did that for about 3.5, 4 years. And I was like, you know what? I'm kind of tired of this. Kind of want to do something else. And so it's funny. When I was 18, I wanted to join the Marine Corps, and I got scared. And I did the paperwork, went up, swore in, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. Fast forward 4 years later, I was 22. I walked back into the recruiting station. I was like, hey, I want to join. And they're like, okay. So
That's sometimes
did that.
the best way to do it, because then you had so much more knowledge and experience just with life.
Mm-hmm.
And then you joined. So like, do you feel like that kind of gave you a little bit of an advantage doing it that way?
Absolutely. I wasn't a big drinker when I was like 21. I went like on my 21st, I went out and did what I had to do. And I grew up kind of rough. Like, I mean, a lot of people do, but I lost my parents at a very young age. So I really didn't have like a parental guidance or anything. I felt kind of lost. And then I was like, you know what? I just kept getting drawn to the Marine Corps. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And my grandmother didn't support it at the time because she took me in after my mom passed away. And she was like, well, you made your bed, now you lie in it. And I was like, okay. So I did it, and I'm like, I don't regret anything. It got me out of that small town that I was in, the paycheck to paycheck, the endless job that didn't go anywhere, and I wouldn't change a single thing about it.
I love that. I'm grateful that that's how you feel about it now.
Mm-hmm.
So why the Marines? Like, why is out of all the branches?
Because they're the best. They're the toughest. And the uniforms, they're crisp. Everything was on point. And they just there was so much pride. They held themselves to a higher standard. I was like, I want that.
Yeah.
That's going to be me. And everyone's like, you can't do that. I'm like, watch me. I'm going to do that.
Same.
So that's why, it was like a confidence boost too.
Absolutely. I was in a similar thing where it was like, people doubted that I could do it. So it was like, well, watch.
Let me just go do this thing real quick.
So what was your MOS when you joined? Did you have the same MOS the whole time?
No. So when I talked to my recruiter, he was like, he's like, what jobs do you want to do? I was like, I don't know, like whatever. Tell me what to do.
I was the same.
So at first I was going to be a motor team mechanic. And I was like, okay, like that doesn't seem so hard. Because everyone was like, don't go to communications and everything. I'm like, okay, I'll be a mechanic. Like I can work with my hands. And then he called me a week after, or a week before I wasn't supposed to go. He called me and he was like, hey, we have a ship date next Monday, but it's for this job. And I said, well, what's motor T? He's like, you just drive trucks. I was like, and I panicked. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess we're doing it. We're doing it. So at first it was supposed to be a motor T mechanic, and then we switched to motor T driver. So, and that, I think that was so much
I
better
agree.
than being a mechanic.
That's kind of like sometimes you hear bad stories about random switches like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like, they had cool jobs and then they needed to ship somebody, so they sent somebody and it was like a terrible job,
Yeah.
like police or something. I'm like, but yeah, being from a driver to from a mech to a driver is kind of a nice bump.
Yeah, it was. I saw them like wow, how much they worked during the day and like what they did. And I was like, man, I'm glad I didn't get that job. I'm
I
gonna stay over
know,
here.
because I was an A-Vine mechanic on the helicopters. I couldn't have flown them. You have to be an officer to do that. But that would have been honestly the best
Yeah.
scenario if I was enough to be. But I didn't go to college for an officer. So where was your first duty station, or where did you go to school? Where's Moto 2 school again?
We went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we were
Okay.
there for about three and a half months, I want to say. About 3.5.
And did you like
So
get there?
at first, no.
It
That
always
part
sucks. You
that
don't
part
have
I
a
didn't
vehicle. You're a student.
no.
It's just not fun.
Yeah, we went there and I was old enough to drink. Obviously, we would go out to the, I think it was like Area 51 or whatever. I couldn't drink, but I was old enough to drink. I'm like, this is, it was just like frustrating.
It's
Not that
just
I
not
wanted,
fun.
yeah, not that I wanted to, but I was like, I'm not, because I'm not a big drinker now that I'm 29 now, but it would have been nice just to have one and like just kind of chill. But when I went back, 2 years later, it was so much different.
I
I
bet,
was like,
yeah, because
I feel
you're
like
your
a
own
grown
person
up
then.
now. Yeah, it was a lot
Yeah.
better going back the second time.
What did you go back for? Were you like what did you do when you were there?
So when I went back the second time, I went for vehicle recovery course. I was going to be a wrecker operator, so like the tow trucks and stuff. So I got to drive them and be licensed on them, and it was the best job I have ever had.
That sounds like so much
Yeah.
fun. That sounds like so much fun. So where all were you stationed? Let's start with the first duty station up until when you EAS'd.
So I was just in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, the whole time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was just 4 years there. Did field ops here and there, but I never changed duty stations.
Okay.
So
But
we
you got to go.
were
You got to go do some cool, fun things in different places and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Did you? Where were some of the places that you got to go to?
The first one we went to was Blunt Island, Florida. That was my first field op. We were doing, they were taking the vehicles off the ship, and then we were doing like our job, like staging them and everything. And that was a month. I want to say that was like a month long or whatever. It was so hot. I've been to Florida once, but not like that.
I didn't even know that we had like training like that down there, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, we went down and there was like a little creek outside the parking lot where we were staying, and there was alligators or crocodiles in there, and they were like, don't go near the water. I'm like, his head's popping out, like I'm not going over there. And they had
thank God you said that, because I was thinking maybe that was a good place to swim. So I'm glad you told me not to go there.
Like we went to about a quarter mile down, and I said, there's no like crocodiles around here. They were like, no, they're back where we sleep. I was like, yeah, of course they're back where we sleep. Yeah. He just sat there. He's popping his head out. I'm like, you stay over there. I'm not going over there.
So funny. Yeah. That's so funny. So you were there for a month. What other places did you get to go to?
A couple months after that, I came back. I was a bus driver, and then I was working. I forget what unit I was with. It was down in Stone Bay, and I was taking role players for the 22nd MEU down to Florida to like get their training. So I was just the bus driver. I wasn't involved in their training.
Okay.
I think that was Jacksonville, Florida too. We drove down.
Kind of fun.
It was. Well, it was short. Drove down, got the living arrangement set up, took them to their first training exercise, got a call. They were like, yeah, we're done. We're not doing this, and drove home the next day. I'm like, this is just a waste of time. But
That's
it was,
almost cool.
yeah, it could have been. And then we went to Fort Bragg for a little while, not just like a regular Motor T field up, nothing. We got to shoot and everything, and that one was pretty low key, not really anything going on. And then we went
I was
to,
wondering because I was reading through your little paragraph and I was like, oh, because Fort Bragg's typically Army. And I was
yeah,
like, I'm pretty sure she's a Marine Corps vet. So I
we
was like, I'll just ask her on the
we
live.
got we got ready to go on the convoy. I think it was in an MRAP. I was a passenger on the back, slept the whole way up there. And I'm like, man, what the heck are we doing? It's just woods. And they were like, oh, yeah, the RV, whatever, this and that. So we stayed. We were in the middle of the woods, like no civilization whatsoever. And we had to set up like the AHA where the ammo point was. And then the COC was up on the hill. And then you go down the other way, you go out to the main road where their shooting range is. And that one was pretty low key too. That one really wasn't, nothing special.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was fun.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, I think about even like the stuff I did was so simple, but it's like I did that. It's still kind of cool to be like, that was fun and I did that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So you EAS out of North Carolina?
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about like what transitioning out, what your experience was like, where you went.
It was rough. So, um, let me get my timeline straight here. Okay, so 2020, the beginning of 2020, COVID happened. I was married at the time, and my husband got orders to 8th and I in DC, and that was in March 1st.
Oh, that was
So
like
he moved
right when COVID was hitting. That was like right
right.
when all the lockdowns started happening.
Yeah, we were like, why do we have to wear masks in the motor pool? We're outside. And then, so obviously nobody wore them. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, what are we even doing? Nobody had any idea. And I was working crazy hours because I was an NCO at that time, and I was on limb duty for my back. So I really wasn't doing anything. I was, chief of OVE at the time with my sergeant, and we were just kind of like, what are we doing? Nobody knew. And so he came up to Virginia in March, and then I just kind of coasted till the end of, I want to say, August. Started my transition process, and everything was online. TRS was totally
Oh.
online. Yeah,
Oh
I did.
God, and I thought it was bad in person. I can't imagine. What was even the point? I bet there was nothing. It was just
It
a checklist.
was just death by PowerPoint, literally. So they had all the married Marines stay home in April because of COVID. All the single Marines went to the motor pool to work and everything. And I said, well, my husband's stationed in a different state. I said, I can come to the motor pool and work. They're like, no, you're married. I said, but I can come to the motor pool and work. And they were like, no, you're married. And so I started getting like super depressed. Like, what are we doing? Like, I'm sitting in my bed on a laptop doing, courses and classes that it's not benefiting me. I called my staff sergeant. I was like, can I please come back to the motor pool? He's like, no, you're married. And I said, but I'm by myself. I'm bored. And he goes, no, stay home. So that was really
Aww.
frustrating. So doing TRS online, you're just reading everything. Nothing's explained to you. I said, okay, cool. So I'm clicking, clicking, clicking. And we finally got to go back in May, and I got my checklist. I started checking out and everything. And I said, well, I'm doing this process. Oh, well, you got to go talk to this person. So I go talk to that person. Well, oh, you got to go talk to this person. So it was just like a cat and mouse game for the next 4 months. And then finally got everything straightened out in August. My husband was able to come down to North Carolina. He had I think it was NCO Ops he was on. So he got to come down and do his course because he was TAD'd, but I still had to go to work at the motor pool. But it was cool because we got to see each other for like 3 weeks and haven't seen each other for like 6 months.
Yeah,
So that was
I
really
bet. Yeah.
fun. And then yeah, and then he came home, and I said, okay, I'll see you in a week. I'll be home. I'll be out. But it was really frustrating because like the VA where my motor pool was, the VA was literally right across the street and it was closed. So I couldn't do anything. I had no idea what to do, no idea who to talk to. I went to Naval, and they're like, here's your CD, download this, take it to, or send it to the VA for your claims and everything. And I said, okay, well, like, what else do I have to do? They're like, yeah, that's it. So it was very very, like, just kind of do it my own. And then
Oh
I'm
yeah,
trying
they
to,
want it that way because they don't want people to get all the benefits that they need, and a lot of people will
hmm
give up if they're forced to do something on their own because they don't want to put that time and dedication in to get what they deserve.
exactly. And
So
I'm like,
I hope
I went
everyone
through,
does.
yeah, I went through all this, and my back injury started at like the end of 2017, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. And so I kept going back. I'm like, dude, why do I have pain? Why does everything hurt? Like, this hurts so bad to even just run. I went from a first class PFT down to a third class. And I'm like, I'm not big. I'm not like, I don't have other injuries. I was a good Marine. I just couldn't run. Literally, that was my problem. I just couldn't run. I could do my job. I could do my job well. I was good. I was never in trouble, but I just couldn't run.
That's
And
a crappy feeling, especially if at one point you could run because
yeah,
it's obvious that there's something. If it was like, oh, you're just always a bad runner, like
yeah,
me, that's one thing.
hmm
But if you're like, oh, you are a good runner at one point, and then just randomly is not bad, there has to be something wrong.
yeah, they did. I did 6 months of physical therapy. They couldn't figure out what was wrong until my last field op in 2019 in June. I came back and I had an MRI done about like a couple weeks later, and they're like, yeah, your discs are like exploded. Like, that's what the doctor said to me. He's like, your discs in your lower spine are exploded. And I said, then how am I standing? How am I
Yeah,
walking? And he said, well, they're pinching your nerves. Well, it turns out they were just bulge disc. It wasn't exploded. So he had me thinking like, oh my God, I'm going to be a
I'm close
cripple.
to dying.
Yeah. And so I got that all changed and everything. And I was just like, put me on limb duty. Like, I can't do anything. Like, this is, and the surgeon that came down from DC, he was the top spine surgeon. He gave me my MRI results. Like, I still have them in my drawer, black and white. And he's like, this is your spine. I said, so what can you do? He said, well, we could either do this surgery or this surgery or that. And he said, but I risk paralyzing you. And I said, I'm 25 years old. I don't want to be
Yeah,
paralyzed. So they just kept me on limb duty till I got out. But it was, that last year was such a struggle between that, being separated from my husband, and then doing TRS like blind. It was so, I feel like I was cheated. Like, that's how I feel.
I can't imagine because I feel like I
Yeah.
was cheated, and I was sitting in a classroom with them just PowerPoint blasting me, handing me all this paperwork, like this is everything that you
Yeah.
need. Here you go, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
So
There's
even
no
that,
roadmap.
you got that, but like no one doing it. Just here's
Yeah.
information, and you're just like, okay.
I just kind of figured it out. I went to the first place and I said, all right, what now? And they said, go here. Okay, now what? Where do I go? So I just kept asking people. I was calling people. I said, get me out, but let me do it the right way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wish that everybody like there's enough veterans that we could like employ people that as they're getting out, you have like another veteran
Yes.
guide that's like, hey, this make sure you're doing this, like not like forcing them obviously, but being like these are the best steps that you should do to make sure that you're getting at least everything that you
Yeah.
deserve.
And how to do the checkout process correct, whether you're working with a Peblo or however your transition is, like state to state, or like if you're staying there. Like, I think they need to implement something like that. I think that would be the best.
Yeah, like I think that there's so many veterans who to work from home or in a position where they're physically or mentally not capable to do the work that they
hmm
want to do, but maybe they could. I wish like the VA could pay for that. Like that's how they could pay those veterans to do
Yeah.
that. You know what I
hmm
mean? That'd be a great thing. I wonder if that's something that already exists that I don't know about. So hopefully, if anyone sees this, maybe we could start it up.
Yeah.
I would love that.
I would
Me
do it. Go work on
too.
base, get assigned to Marines that are transitioning. Hey, this is what you got to do. You got a checklist. All right, good. And that send you on your way. Then the next Marine comes in. Like, I would do that. I would do that in a
Right?
heartbeat. Yeah.
So, are we starting something right now? Because
We
like,
might be starting something.
because I'm so for that. I am so for that. Because I feel like even if they were just like veterans, like once you get a certain disability,
hmm
hey, we see that you're 90% disabled or more.
hmm
We have this program where we'll give you an extra, even if it was like extra 500, $600 a month to help guide other veterans
Yeah.
on the EAS process, whether it be mental health support and guidance, because I think that alone would prevent, the suicide rates from being as high as they are.
Yeah.
Because everyone that it would keep the veteran community even closer too. And honestly, that's why I love this.
Yeah.
This is why I love this, because
Mhm.
even if I don't feel like going live, because I have those days where I'm like, man, I don't feel like doing my hair and makeup and going live.
Yep.
But it forces me to get with a better veteran at least once a week and talk about what makes us the same, what makes us different, reminds us of what we've done while we were in, that kind of brings us together. So I really enjoy this.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here, because I love that. Okay.
Good.
Okay. So yeah. So your VA experience now, have you gotten yourself figured out?
Yeah, I did mine pretty quick. I got out in September 2020. I started the process in August. I was actually on duty at the barracks, typing everything in the computer at night. That was my last barracks duty. And I said, I'm going to work on my VA and everything. I sent them my CD. And once I got out, they were scheduling appointments and stuff. It took a little bit, but I didn't have to call and fight for it. Like
You said you were still in when you were doing it?
Yeah, I was still in.
I love that. I wish I could
Mhm.
tell everybody
As
to
long
start
as
it when you.
as long as you have that disc from Naval, you can, and your checklist, like you're checked out of medical and you're checked out of dental, you can go ahead and do that as long as you don't get injured or have to go back to medical. As far as I know, when I was in, that was the case. But I submitted everything, and then probably I was out on terminal in September, and that's when I started doing the appointments and scheduling everything. I went to my appointment in January 21, and it was in Bowie, Maryland, because I had moved up to Virginia then. And it was probably about an hour and a half away from where I lived. And literally, Way went through everything. I was there for 4 hours. And this lady, God bless her, she stuck with me. And I said, I know there's a couple things on there that are probably not relevant, like the hair loss and smoking. And I had like acne and stuff that was going on. And she's like, yeah, they're not service connected. I said, okay, well, like, I don't know, whatever. Just do what is connected.
Yeah.
I was there for 4 hours. And I said, okay, well, now what? And she said, well, you will hear something in the mail or a phone call in a little while. I said, okay. And then I got a phone call the one day from my buddy. He said, hey, did you get your disability rating? And I said, no, I don't know what it is. Well, once you do your appointments and your claims, they have to give you a decision within 15 days. And I did the math. I said, oh, that was like 20 days ago. I hopped online. Boom, there was my disability rating. And that day, the letter came in the mail from the VA stating everything. So I didn't really have, I know a lot of people have to fight and keep calling, and I just didn't have to. I don't know.
So good for you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
I got
And
really
that's because you started
lucky.
the process before you were EASing as soon as you had your disc.
Yeah.
And that's why I strongly, because I was not smart at all. I mean, like I said, I was young getting out.
Mhm.
And I wish that I had talked to like me
Mhm.
now before I got out, because I just wanted to get the out. That's all I wanted. I didn't give a shit about my future at all. It wasn't what was on my mind. What was on my mind was not dealing with, at the time, the bullshit of the military aspect
Exactly.
of my job.
Yeah.
Because my job, what I hated about my job specifically, especially now thinking back, was that I was just a number. But that job was made to be so important to me. So that I made that job more important than my own health.
I did too.
And the military teaches you that's what you're supposed to do. You need to push through. We talk about this a lot, and I'm driving it home because I want people to hear that message. You're just a number to the military.
Exactly. I was saying that my second year I was there. I said, I feel like I'm just a number. I could go away, and then a new PFC would come next month and take my spot. So
even if you're a sergeant with qualifications, they will get another sergeant with those same exact qualifications.
And
even,
then some.
yeah. And then even if you have that knowledge, yeah, you can take that knowledge and go forward, and that's great for you. That's the point. You want to take that knowledge, and this is what I wish I would have told myself, because I was in a position where I was an avionics helicopter mechanic.
That's
I had the
badass.
books at my thing, and I just hated the Marine Corps aspect so much of like the bullshit of like being at my shop at 5 a.m. And someone losing something on the flight line or something going missing, and then me having to stay there until 8 o'clock at night, and then knowing that I'm going to get back to this shitty barracks just in time to wake up to do it again tomorrow. And that's my Monday through Friday.
Exactly.
And it's so miserable because I want these helicopters to fly. That's my job. But I also don't like that. I don't want to get yelled at for doing something. It's so much stress.
Yes, it's so much unnecessary stress and a constant state of anxiety. And I mean, so I did. I would go to my shop 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, open OVE, and then all the drivers would come in, get their SL3, sign it out, get on the road, and I'm there. And then we would have, oh my goodness, I can't even remember what we called it, where the paratroopers would come in, they would get on the bus, and then they would do their drops at night.
Oh yeah.
And I can't remember what it's called. So they would do their drops, and then but we had 2 motor T trucks that would go out, and then they would bring them back, and it wouldn't be till like maybe 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So I would have to stay all day at the motor pool, and then till they get back the next day or that night, and then be back in the shop at 05 again.
Yep.
And I did that for 6 months. I covered down on dispatch till midnight, and then had to go home, and then come back at 05 again the next morning to open OVE.
Yep.
And
so many Marines are doing that. That's normal. That's what you're told is normal. This is what you should be doing.
It was so normal. It was so normal. Like functional normal.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Because then they make the jokes like all the military members get addicted to energy drinks. It's not a joke. People like Marines will drink those like water. Because they're
and nicotine.
Exhausted, and it's normal to be exhausted. Everybody's exhausted. It's not, and it's not something that's going to ever change. But what these conversations I hope can do is like, okay, this is normal, and when you're getting out, you can set your boundary for what's normal for you, and we can work through it together, because there's a mental shift.
It is, and I'm still dealing with it. And I mean, I didn't do any deployments or anything crazy in my 4 years, but I'm still dealing with a lot as far as like personal, and like my husband's still in and everything, and I go work, a normal civilian 8 to 4 job, but I'm still dealing with a lot mentally, like getting up on time in the morning, getting all my stuff together, having my daughter's stuff ready to go. I
constantly feel anxious. Like
I do too.
Waiting for something to go wrong, even though I'm complete in control.
Yes.
Like, in the military, you're not in control.
No.
Period. You're not. There's always someone in charge of you. And when you get out, even like, especially I'm sure males feel this, and if there's males listening, they can tell me, but like in the military, we kind of lose a sense of all femininity. Like you can't have a certain nail color. You can't color your hair a certain color. You can't wear certain makeup. You can't wear certain things in public. And there's so many rules that kind of box you into this thing. And when you get out, like there's not that at all.
It's not. It's like, what do I do?
Full, opposite end of that, and they grow full beards, and they never work out because they don't have to, and they get super unhealthy. And now you're like, well, you're on the far end of it, and you're like, I just want some sort of stability and structure.
Yeah, there is no routine and structure, and someone telling them where you have to be, what time. And even if they do have a job saying, hey, you have to be here Monday at 8 a.m. Well, okay, but I don't have to.
No.
I can, but I don't have to.
And that's a good point, because some people don't realize in the military, if you don't show up for work,
that's
not an option. They will find you,
and you're gonna have a bad day.
Yeah. And if you continuously do it, eventually they'll probably just put you in the brig. I mean, I don't know. I don't know anyone that's done it. Or but if you were to decide, I don't want to be in the military anymore, and like tried to go back home,
it
not
doesn't
allowed,
work
my
like
friend.
that.
Not allowed.
we had a girl, I don't remember her name, and I don't want to name drop or anything, but
Yeah,
we
yeah.
had a girl, she went UA for 28 days exactly. And we're like, where's, what's her face? And they're like, oh, there's talk like she went UA. And we're like, well, what the heck? Like, what was she doing? Because she was in the same company as me, but different platoon. So I knew of her, but I didn't know her. And she came back, and a whole mess of stuff opened up with her and her ex-husband or husband at the time. And she ended up going to the brig eventually, not for the UA though, but for what was going on at home. There was like a domestic
Oh,
situation. She went to the brig for something totally different and unrelated to being UA. And we're like, what the heck happened? And she was brand new too, like nothing, she wasn't there long enough to like really get seasoned. And yeah, it was a whole mess of stuff. Like, oh man, but we had guys that would show up late every day, and I'm like, how hard is it to just get your roommate, get them up, get them out of bed? Even when I would, open for OVE, I'd have, Marines come in, and I'm like, you don't have a shave, dude. And I ripped this kid a new one. I said, I'll go home, grab my razor, and I'll bring it in here, and I'll watch you shave your nasty face with my razor. Because if I have to do my hair every single day, you have to shave your face. That was the last time he ever did not shave. Ever since then, he had a shave every morning. He said good morning, and that was it. And I said, all right, glad we got that squared away.
you probably said the rest of his Marine Corps career, he was like, never again. I'm about to be held for that.
Hopefully, I don't even know if he's still in or
That's
not,
so fun.
but man, he came in the third day, and I was just in a bad mood, and I just ripped into him. I missed, this is so bad, but
This is so bad.
I miss yelling at people. Like,
Yeah.
not just to yell at them, but like when they really needed it, and
Mm-hmm.
be like, why are you so dumb? Why can't you just follow
It
directions?
being socially acceptable to just lose your shit on people.
I miss that so much. Now at my job, like, we curse to each other. We're respectful to each other. Like, we'll be like, hey dude, this and that, drop a couple, here and there. But no one gets into each other. They're a lot older than I am too. It's a very, very low key kind of job, which I
Me
like.
too.
But I'm
I would
I'm
like
like,
that.
man, can one of you just, you know, push my button the wrong way one morning,
That's
please? And they're
so
like,
funny.
you'll get fired. I'm like, I don't care. Your tax dollars still pay me every month. Not to sound arrogant, but like, that's my excuse. And I feel bad, and I'm like, I don't care. I don't need this job, and I'm not going to be here forever. But I love my job with
Yeah.
where I'm at. But I'm not going to be there forever. So it's like, I'm going to do what I got to do to the best of my ability, and I'm going to move
That's
on. And that's,
that's important. Always doing like your best for where you're
mm-hmm,
at, but as long as it's not affecting your well-being. And I
exactly.
think you lose that a lot, especially in the military, because
Mm-hmm.
it is harder for them for people in the military to have. They can't really say that
No,
because
they can't.
yeah, and that's something that we that I think as leaders in the military, that what they could do is understand that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fine line between being a strong and stern leader and being an asshole.
Exactly. 100%.
And a lot of people struggle to
Mm-hmm.
find that, which I don't understand. But that's just the military mindset that I think that it's good to kind of shift and adjust a little bit. Because I think you can be a hard ass without mentally fucking people
You
for the
can
rest
be
of their life. Yeah.
smart about it. You can be humble. You can be approachable, but still being a person of authority. And, this is the way we're going to do the job. But if you need something, like, you can still come to me. And
Yes.
there is not a lot of that
I
anymore.
because the leaders that I specifically remember and look up to were leaders that I was afraid to upset them because I didn't want them to be
Yes.
disappointed. Not because I was afraid that they were going to yell at me. Because someone who doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
yell to prove that they have that power to like be disappointed, that's so much
Yeah.
more of a strong leader than someone who can like scream at
Mm-hmm.
you. Or those leaders. I remember like I was like, oh, they're gonna be mad
Mm-hmm.
again. Like it got to a point where I was like, I don't give a be mad.
Yeah.
But the ones who were like, if I could disappoint them, that
Mhm.
sucked more. Like, I don't like,
That's just, you really hurt me. Just, I had a couple
yeah,
like that
right?
too. I'm
Like,
like,
don't be
oh
disappointed. No,
man,
stop.
I don't
That's
want
way
to.
worse. Because
Yeah,
that's like, and then when you make them proud, it's such more of accomplishment.
yeah,
Whereas,
it
like, the
is.
person who isn't yelling just isn't yelling. You're just like, finally, God.
Yeah, like, are you done? Because I'm done. I hear you, I understand you, but I'm done.
Yeah.
I hated that. And then they want to be like, oh, you need to be on your best behavior because if you say that or do the wrong thing, like he has the power to fire you. I'm like, you scared of him? Why are you scared of him? He's a grown man just like you. He's a grown adult just like me. Why do I have to be scared of him? And there's that I have a problem with too. I'm like, well, I mean, and people don't want to be leaders. People don't want to take over that role a lot too. And the people that are in certain roles like that, they can't relate. They don't understand. So it kind of makes it a little bit difficult there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, again, I feel like it's changing more as
Mhm.
people are more open about this, and like the mentality of like, sorry, like we're raising children. Do you have
Yeah,
children? Yeah, you're
I have a daughter.
sleeping. That's why we're doing this right now.
Yeah, she's in the
Um,
other room. It's okay.
and we're raising them. We're raising these children now that are coming up. They're hearing us. Like, my kids
Mhm.
know that I have a podcast that's specifically on mental health,
Mhm.
and I have men that will come on and talk about it. And it is less taboo for women to talk about this, which is
Mhm.
why I love that it's like military strong
Mhm.
women, because it shows that you can be strong and proud, and you can also be open and willing to talk about mental health.
Mhm.
And our kids are growing up seeing this.
Yeah,
So
because when we grew up, there was no talk, at least for me, there was no talk about mental health. There was none.
no. Oh my gosh. If people talked about anxiety, it was thought of as
Yeah.
weak. Like, I remember being like, even thinking myself, like, what is anxiety? How do
Yeah,
you feel
like
anxious? Just fucking
just
do something. And now
do
I'm
it.
older and I'm like, what is living without anxiety? I don't
Exactly.
know.
It's hard. Even just to sit and just sit. Like I'm always fidgeting. I'm always on my phone. I'm always doing something. I always have to be doing something. Or
Me
I
too.
have to I can't just sit and relax and just like really internally
And
relax.
I found that sometimes people's forms of relaxing is doing something
Mhm.
that it's something that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Like, for me, like, I found like painting and art, and I feel
Mhm.
like I never ever am I just sitting doing
Mhm.
nothing. Never in my life am I ever just sitting doing nothing. But at least when I'm sitting and painting, like, my mind's allowed to go through whatever it feels like going through in that moment, and I do feel refreshed and better afterwards.
Mhm.
And I think that's if people find their own little niche and different things that they can do like that.
Yeah.
Like, some people like golf
Mhm.
or tennis, or they play the piano or different things like that. Um, that if you can learn how that's your moment to
Mhm.
reset and relax, that you don't need like a sit and I'm gonna do nothing. Like,
Yeah.
that's great if that's what you absolutely need. If you find it's struggling to do that,
Mhm.
that you can find something that's another way to reset.
Right. Yeah, I did. It's kind of hard. My daughter's 2.5, so she's like, oh, let's play and do this and do that. So when she goes to sleep, I get mommy time, and I'm like, okay, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to sit here and be on my phone, or do I want to, you know, get a shower and chill or watch TV? And then I started doing coloring. I got
I
a
love
coloring book and coloring
that.
pencils, and I started doing that. Well, I wouldn't be halfway through and I'd be falling asleep, and I'm like, oh, okay, I need to go to bed. And so that's like something I did, and really just talking to people, like my friends. Like I made more time with my husband when he comes home because he works crazy hours, and I said, this just talking for like once or twice a week when you come home, I said, is so refreshing for me and like brings us closer into where we're at right now in our lives, that it's just there doesn't need to be doing anything.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love
Mhm.
that so much. Well, I want to thank you again so much for coming on and talking to me today. If people want to just give you a follow and support you, what's the best way to see more about
Um,
you?
I'm mostly on Facebook.
Okay.
I get on Instagram once in a while, but I'm mostly on Facebook with the name that you tagged me under. That's like pretty much where I am right now.
Okay,
Mhm.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. This is the perfect of length of audio. So I'm really grateful.
Good. I'm glad.
And yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to add before I let you go today?
Do what's best for you no matter what, because the only person that will care about you is yourself.
I love that.
That's what I've learned over the last couple
It's
years.
the most important.
Mm-hmm.
And, like,
and if you want something done, you got to do it
genuinely,
yourself.
yeah. And truly, genuinely loving yourself. And part
Yes.
of doing that is taking care of yourself.
Exactly. And if you don't know, then just make a plan.
Yeah.
And figure out what you like and what you don't, and figure you out before you can do anything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much.
Well, thank you.
I'll be putting the audio on Tuesday. Audio will be on Spotify,
Okay.
so that'll be awesome.
All
Thank you
right.
so much. Thank
I'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.